are Dukes and Bell. We start off every day and every hour by saying, hey, man. Lots of stuff going on with the Falcons down in the MIA, taking on the Dolphins for a couple of days of practice. And then on Friday, the first preseason game, guys, Falcons at Miami, 5 o'clock pregame, kicks at 7 o'clock right here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. And a couple of things we need to get you updated on. And then there is another big story that we need to talk about coming up here in less than 10 minutes, and it has to do with ESPN, so stay tuned for that. Mike, first and foremost today, one of the first things we heard when we got to work today was Clark Phillips, a guy that we've taken a liking to. He's a baller, man. Playing well in the secondary. We drafted him out of Utah, guys. He was injured today and got kicked, apparently, okay? And we didn't know the extent of the injury, but he got carted off. And we always are very cautious when guys get carted off. But the news is that it's not as bad as it was perceived.
Day to day, which is good to hear, man. Because we said we've seen guys carted off at Falcons camp, and some dudes got their injury settlement and probably won't be playing the rest of the year. And then, we're still waiting here, although the news certainly is better than expected about Jeff Okudah. But, yeah, and Randy Mack was kind of funny. One of the last things we said today at the handoff, Randy's like, oh, everybody's getting carted off these days.
He did say that.
Bunch of softies. But that's great news because, we said we've got a lot of depth, but like anything else, you keep scratching away and whittling away at that depth. All of a sudden you get into guys that definitely aren't as good. And one of those things today, and again, shame on the Dolphins, Carl. If you're going to show a Tyreek Hill video, at least have him going up against A.J. Terrell or one of these dudes. They had him going up against, I guess it was Trey, and it didn't look good.
Trey Flowers.
Yeah, Trey Flowers, because, that's a 6'3" dude who looks more like, reminded me of Lewis Oliver, right? More like a safety. But he was kind of doing his cheetah thing, bing, bong, bing. But also, we had some magical moments, which kind of gave the crowd some oohs and ahs, and that was with even Dolphin fans appreciating Bijan Robinson's game today.
Yeah, he caught a touchdown in the red zone. And again, they're working on specific things, so, I don't want to get overly excited, but you either pop or you don't. You either look like a star or you don't, okay? Let me ask you guys something. How long has it taken Messi to come over here and you to realize he's really damn good? Instantaneously. Either you pop or you don't. And for me, that's what I'm waiting to see with some of our Falcons. And specifically, one guy is Kyle Pitts. And we had this conversation earlier, and I said, you're going to hear it coming up with Scott Bair, who was there today, and he was covering the practice, and we were talking about, all right, what did this look like? He said early on the Dolphins took Drake London and Kyle Pitts to the ground. Like, whether it was purposely or, hey, we're going to be physical with you guys, however you might imagine that. But my thing was like, okay, so Kyle Pitts did what today? I want to start hearing how Kyle is dominating these practices, Mike. I want to start seeing and hearing those things that we haven't necessarily heard. Now, you said, and by the way, Scott Bair said this earlier. He said, I'm grading him on a curve because he's coming off the injury. You sort of feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm not making excuses. We're here. The line is here now for this team. But to your point, as a 4th overall pick, you expect to really pop. It's just like everything else in Atlanta. There's no when it comes to the Falcons, you can't definitively say he's a bust. He's not a bust. We're going into year 3. But he did miss time last year. And then in his defense, the guy throwing the ball to him while he was healthy was a bum, and Marcus Mariota. And there were times I know he was open, and Mariota couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But now you need to see this guy's pop, because at the end of the day, you're still a 4th-round pick. Yeah. And 4th-round picks are supposed to be the best guy on the field. So the only excuse I would make for him is he is still less than a year away from that knee injury. And he's maybe not 100%. And I also think that Kyle hears the chatter and wants to prove he's good to go. So he's made some guys ask me, what's Pitts done at camp? Well, a nice high point catch in traffic. He's caught some nice, acrobatic catches, shoestring level, because he's a tremendous athlete. But you're right. You want to hear the stuff you're hearing about other guys like Bijan or Tyreek Hill, because he's supposed to be that kind of an elite athlete, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. But plenty of time. We're still early. We hadn't even played our first preseason game. Right. Okay? But I also think it doesn't take a lot of time for us to feel like this is going to be special. You feel that way with Bijan. I think a lot of you who went to practice over the last week and a half, you feel that way by watching him. Let's hear what Coach said today, Mike. It's our Falcon Report talking about Arthur Smith. How did he think the offense did today?
Yeah, it was good. We worked some situational stuff, and then we were going down there to kick a field goal and working that situation. At the end, got the ball down there. Went 1 for 2 on the kick, but there was some time, so we still had to go out and play defense. But it's good to work those situations in the game. On the first drive, obviously, we made the kick. But again, I got to go look at the other side. And it felt really competitive. There was no really any BS or anything like that. So good day.
By the way, Arthur immediately after practice went to South Beach, and he was hitting the rave that was going on in the backyard of the Tides, and they had a DJ spin. That's how cool Arthur is. No, that's actually there's just the crowd.
Yeah, listen, they get it hype, whatever. I just want us to practice well against a team that I think is going to be good during the season. I think this is a good roster for the Miami Dolphins. Here is what he said about Clark Phillips when it happened. He was giving an update earlier today. We now know, I repeat, Sean, who just hit us up, Clark Phillips is listed as day-to-day. It wasn't as serious as they thought. He was carted off as precautionary, okay? So that is what we're reporting to you guys. He's going to be fine, basically, all right? Day-to-day, aren't we all? Here's what Coach said earlier today about the injury.
Update you on Clark Phillips' situation?
He got kicked, so, again, you just never know. And, we just got to get the x-ray. But, again, D-Led, you just got to get the imaging done, and we'll see. But at least he got up on his own, and hopefully we'll get that x-ray soon.
Yeah, it's good to hear because, as we said, we're starting to get a little thin at an area we were talking about how robust we are at the corner position. Speaking of the matchups with the corners, D-Led had a funny quote from Jerry Gray, who's a legendary secondary coach who's now working with the Falcons. He says the Dolphins wide receivers Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle could be the third and fourth leg on a 4x100 relay team. He says he'll stress techniques for the DBs today, and you saw some of that. Some of the techniques worked, but some of that stuff you just can't match up that speed, and Tyreek Hill was put on a show.
Yeah, I think good news, if you want to hear good news about this defense, D-line stood up today.
Yep.
Stood up, stood out, okay? So our D-line had a good day. I'll take it, Mike, because this is an area where we said we have to improve. So you're talking about Grady and David Onyemata, right? Those guys up front. That is good news. All right, here's A.J. Terrell talking about his one-on-one battles today and his matchups.
Matchups is good, just being able to see new faces and, Tyreek Hill and the whole receiver core with Waddle as well. We got a lot of speed over there, so it was a big difference between our receivers, just being from a speed aspect of the game and them just trying to get the ball to their ones.
Yeah, man, that's why this is such a cool test because, we talked about this earlier. Only 3 weeks now. Almost every NFL team is doing a joint practice like this because you're trying to maximize matchups. And again, there's things like, as we said, we've got, I think you brought this up earlier, we got tall, athletic wide receivers. They've got shorter guys that are more athletic, and are just speed demons, to Jerry Gray's point. So you get those matchups. Talked about a good offensive line, and Calais Campbell dressed out today. He was ready to go after passing the physical. And we've got the new, for what it's worth, depth chart.
Yeah, a guy just...
The new depth chart, Carl!
Well, a guy just hit me up because some of this stuff is coming out. And there are various people that we trust that cover the Falcons. And somebody put it out there that Bijan is listed as third string. Don't get caught up in that. They currently have Cordell Patterson, CP, as a starter.
Right.
Backup is Tyler Algier, and Bijan as a reserve is what they're calling it, okay? Don't get caught up in this. Mike just said to me, we're still looking at this Matt Hennessy left guard situation and Matthew Bergeron. Hennessy is considered to be the starter, at least on paper. Don't get caught up in this. I think Mike thinks the Bergeron's going to ultimately be the starter, and the whole how many snaps Bijan gets. I'm telling you, he's popping, and he will be in. I guarantee you, Carolina game, first series.
Yeah,
he's on the field,
and may even get the first touch.
Okay?
But and so again, they're going with the reps. I should say with the veterans. It has nothing to do with the reps because even though Hennessy, to your points, listed first, Bergeron's got the lion's share ever since he went down with an injury last week.
Yeah,
and Bergeron is bigger, more athletic. No disrespect to Matt. If he's not starting there at left guard, something's wrong this season.
Starters on defense, if you're interested, just from a on paper standpoint.
Now this is interesting because here's where you have veterans and other veterans. So you can do you read something more into this?
Grady, David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree. All right, that's your D-line. Your linebackers are Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, and Arnold Ebiketie, outside linebacker. And then you've got A.J. Terrell, Jesse Bates, Richie Grant, D. Alford, and again, Jeff Okudah. Better diagnosis, right? We said this. He may or may not miss games. We don't know. He might be ready for the start of the season. We'll see. But that's what it looks like, at least, Mike, from a starting defensive standpoint. And then you start looking at the backups, and you're going, wait a minute. Some of these guys are having really good camps. And I'll give you a guy, and you'll hear this coming up in our interview with Scott Bear earlier today. Zach Harrison's having a good camp.
Yeah, the dude that's a third-round pick, this was the guy, Georgia fans saw him in the semifinal game for Ohio State. He is like a mountain of a man. He's one of the first guys you notice at practice is this dude, and he is a monster, and he's coming along. But I think according to what Scott Bear from the Atlanta Falcons website, Zach had a big day today down in Miami.
Yeah, he is listed as the third reserve behind Calais Campbell. So, again, these are rotational pieces. We know Calais is not going to play every defensive snap.
No. And you and I were trying to come up with a number. You say 25?
30.
Okay. And again,
That's half a game.
Right. And this is his last season. Hopefully he's going to go out with some gusto. But it is interesting to see this because some guys will look at this and go, wait a minute. So, to Carl's point, they're playing lip service to the veterans.
Yes.
As rookies are going to probably, to the rookies who may or not beat them out. But it is interesting to see that, right off the jump, Bud Dupree is over Lorenzo Carter, who was brought back from last year on a one-year deal.
Yeah. All right, guys, you can let us know what you think. 404-726-0929. More on this practice, as you'll hear in our interview. But a good day. Good day.